Okay, we're on.
Bonjour again from the south of France.
She's saying bonjour again because this is our second attempt at the video. Hopefully this is going to be a good one and then more bloopers.
No, it's the second video.
So the second video, of course.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Andrew.
Sunita, to all the new people who haven't seen our first video. We wanted to give you an update on what's happening this week at Château de Capulet, and also answer a few of your questions that Andrew wrote down. I'll let him read that because I might not be able to read his handwriting. This week at the castle, we are working in the entrance hall. There is a spot as you come in where there's been old bricks. This is some of the bricks that were taken out. Actually, some of them came from the chimney as well.
The bricks over there that the people can't see.
You might have seen the post yesterday on the group where Andrew was asking for some ideas for a barbecue, and we've had some great responses. Thank you. So some vertical...
Would you like me to take over?
Yes.
So in the hallway there was a mixture of architecture. Again, we've talked about it before as if there's been some different designs that's happened over the place, over the periods that it's been lived in. So there was plasterboard, or plaster rather, no plasterboard, very, very thick plaster. And on top of that was kind of like a tapestry, which was mostly old and rotten, but we managed to save a few bits for historical purposes. Anyway, the plaster was taken back, and as you're aware, if you've been following the blog, there was a couple, or at least one announced, but there were two hidden doorways behind there. Yes. So if you walk along the hallway, where there is a door to the left and a door to the right, there was actually two doors to the left and two doors to the right, although each of the second ones was bricked up. So we've opened those up, but in opening those up and taking back the plaster, we've discovered different types of, or periods or styles of wall. So there's something in French which I have no idea of the name and I can't remember, but it's basically beams that are vertical with rock in between, but they're very close beams and they're not like, one beam holding up the wall. So across the hallway there's, I don't know, maybe 10 beams, and each of the beams is, say, maybe a meter apart, and in that meter there's almost like slate-like stone, very flat and packed vertically. And that's a typical French style, which is, again, a name I can't remember. But in the corner, where the doorway was, where I guess it was put in, and they've had taken that original style out, they had just red bricked up behind it. So what we've done is we've taken those red bricks out, and we've matched the style. So we've had some help this week, our trusty friends. So they've been putting in pieces of wood, which replicate the existing pieces of wood, and in fact they're reclaimed timbers from the house. And then walking around the garden and finding more slate and more things, and lime mixing it in. Yeah.
We have a bucket of stone sitting here. Oh, almost thought there was a escargot climbing up my arm for a minute.
Out of the pot.
Yeah, we have a few buckets of stone sitting here ready for the work to continue tomorrow. But shall we move to the questions now?
I was actually going to say the rest of the work happening this week. So earlier this week, I produced an attempt at our second YouTube video, which was the most boring video ever. It was like...
That's because I wasn't in it.
Sunita wasn't feeling very well and I was doing it by myself. It was, if you can imagine your worst teacher from school, history, maths, English. Actually, a few of my teachers are on this group, so I have to be careful. It was never one of you, I promise. If you imagine your worst teacher ever delivering a really dull, monotone update, that's what I did successfully. So bad that we binned it. But that was work in the cave. So I guess we'll do a video from there another time, which is less dull.
Yes, well, today is just a very beautiful day, so we decided to do it outside on the steps.
We'll pick a rainy day.
In front of the house. This is also our kitchen. We used to eat a lot of baguettes down here before there was anywhere else to do that.
There are lots of photos of us and the kids having baguettes on the steps.
Lots of photos of us sitting just here having lunch. So yes, we thought we'll do it here and enjoy the last bit of the sunshine.
But I guess giving the full update, also work going on in the cave. So the cave is the room next to the lounge room or drawing room. I'm not sure what that room's called that we finished. The drawing room. It's the other side of the hallway from the drawing room. We need to do some more work with a floor plan and get you guys more orientated with what's going on. But the videos will help too. So work's been going on in there. That's a fairly easy room to do repairs on. And all the family was able to get stuck in because there's hammers and paintbrushes, fairly simple stuff. When it's electrical and sharp, we have more danger with 3, 6 and 8 year old children.
Yeah.
And gardening as well. We've been doing a ton of work in the garden.
Yes, still strumming. It seems like when you get to the end of a patch, that the other patch has already grown again. There's been last week we spoke about lots of rain. You might have seen the post of the tree that fell over with the storm, and this week has just been lovely sunshine. So everything is growing at speed. I don't think Andrew will be able to keep up with the strumming.
No, especially because streaming is a night activity because I work during the day, and it's a couple of nights a week streaming, and then it's a couple of nights a week painting or something else, and then it's a couple of nights a week playing with the kids. And in fact,
Yeah.
I'm most worried about our children growing because the splash pool's out at the moment, and you know what happens when you water things and give them lots of sunshine. Anyway, unless there are other specific questions we didn't answer, we'll move on to some of the more specific questions that we can potentially answer.
Yeah.
Now, I should also say that I'm not very good at names, but I've written down names of people who ask questions so we can give them their due credit. And I've gone top down on the post, so it doesn't mean that if your question hasn't been answered today, it's not going to get answered. It means that we've got arguably 10 minutes of airtime before the clip gets too long and dull, and I've only picked a few to go through today. So, Lee Mansfield, a tour at a certain point. Well, it started today. So the original intention from the chief designer here was to do all videos in the drawing room. And the second video is not in the drawing room. So the tour has begun. So except that all you can see today is the stairs on the outside. But it is a beautiful, beautiful French afternoon. In fact, evening. It is 7 o'clock at night. And this is what it's like.
I'm potentially buying another week of Andrew finishing another room before I take you into another room of the house.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's see.
Anyway, the tour is definitely up. We did talk about the building site, though. There was another question. So Liz Rasmussen asked, what are we doing at the moment? And someone else who I didn't write down because that was at the point where I stopped taking questions, asked, how much of the house have you done and how much haven't you done? Which I actually chuckled at because we haven't done much. We're really at the beginning of our journey. In fact, the drawing room is the first finished room in the main house, and it's not even finished. It's finished for photos, but it still needs electrical sockets and
skirting boards.
Needs Wi-Fi putting in. There's a whole bunch of things we're trying to do. So it's finished in terms of most structural works, but it's not finished in terms of finishing touches. So the rest of the house is still to go.
The first few months was really concentrated on what we call the moon base, the apartment, where we needed to land and live in. So a lot of the last 8 months have gone into that, and then a little bit in the arch to have a little space outside to enjoy the summer weather as well. And I think we only really started in the house in the last 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, I agree. Something like that. And we're still moving back and forth because as well as doing rooms, we're trying to put in what I term the skeleton, which means the drainage system throughout the house. Because I'd rather do drainage now when the walls are open and the floors are up because we're doing things around that, as in we're replacing bits of rotten wood or bits where the wood is missing or damaged. So it's a great time to deploy that skeleton of wiring and cabling all across the house. It gives you that blank slate. And then once those are in, you can then either test the services or not, but then you can start boarding them up and doing the finishing of the rooms on top of that. So and that takes time, and you don't get to see a finished room at the end of it. All you get to see is a large bunch of pipes sticking out through walls.
At the end of a week, I often walk in and think, what have you been doing?
Yeah. So that leads on to our next question, which is from Marion Neathling, which is, when are you planning to finish? Which is another one I also chuckled at.
I was planning to finish yesterday, but Andrew didn't want to play ball, so...
There's still a lot of work to do. If I put my project management hat on, I would say somewhere between 9 and 15 months. But there might be a bunch of stuff finished before that, say in 6 to 9 months, and then we're into a bunch of kind of tail, and we might decide how much of it we actually finish or how much we leave for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It also depends how far the money goes. We're running a pretty big project here, guys. The spend rate is, it's difficult when you go to Lidl and come back with a baguette and ham and cheese. I go to the hardware store and come back with 10 rolls of 100-meter electrical cable and a hot water cylinder. So we're planning with our family in mind, and this is a family-first project. We're not on a traditional television channel with a gazillion pounds behind us and backing. This is our home. And
this is real life.
Yeah,
this
and
is really as real as it gets.
I sit and manage expenses every week, and I do budgeting and forecasting, and we're still green, but when it gets to some of the tail end things and some of the final finishing things, it might be a decision about, do we delay that or do we do it? So it's difficult to say in terms of scope versus timeline. I hope that answers the question. Amelia Ray asked us a question pretty much we haven't exactly answered about the hallway, which is what are the plans for the uncovered doorway or doorways, because we found 2 of them.
So the first one that's quite deep that we weren't sure what we were going to do there. Our plan is just to keep it bricked up as it is and then put some sort of antique piece of furniture in the little gap.
So almost like a window seat kind of thing,
Yes.
but with no window.
And then the other one that is a bit more shallow, the plan is just to use some of the pieces of material that we've recovered. You might have seen the posts about that with the dragon lion motif. I've been told it's a dragon and a lion, so I call it the dragon lion now. So a big piece of that framed, and then with some of the other treasures we have found in the house, some of the letters maybe framed, and perhaps...
Great time for a 2-stroke scooter, huh?
Yeah.
The kids are going down to the lake. Yeah. So
Um,
some kind of large 3 human-sized picture frame where we can house and frame some of the historical artifacts from the building process.
But we'll revisit those ideas towards the end when we're getting ready to do that and ask some more opinions and suggestions.
Yep, I agree. Kitten updates. Many people asked for furry friends kitten updates. Do you want to go?
The kittens are actually getting really used to us.
They should be here somewhere.
I have photos that I took
maybe
last
having a nap.
night of my 6-year-old actually sitting within arm's length of the kitten while he's eating. They do tend to come up to them when they're not looking. As soon as the kids look at them, they then run off. But they are getting a lot more used to us, and they are around all the time now.
They're definitely around in the morning and evenings for feeding time. So they tend to live just the other side of the laptop now. They've moved out of the house. They no longer live in the house. They live under one of the fir trees in the backyard, which is covered in brambles. When it's raining, they live in the archway, which is just to the right over here, and I think you guys have seen photos of the archway. And they're always out on the grass in front of the house playing. There's a red ball and a couple of things we put out on the lawn to keep them amused.
They're very cute to watch while they're playing.
Yeah, and they're playing with each other and stalking each other. And they're always a regular attendance at mealtime, and they can eat.
Absolutely.
They can eat.
They are eating us out of house and home. They are hungry little kittens.
Indeed.
We have put some dewormer into their food just in case, but they are still hungry, so they're growing. They're kind of like the kids.
Always busy.
Yeah.
We should watch the time. We're getting on. So the last question we're going to field is from Sarah Undham, which is the biggest item to fix structurally in the house.
The beams.
Well done. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So the house is generally pretty good. It did have some water damage though before the roof was repaired. Before we purchased the property, but some of the water damaged some structural beams. Only a few. In fact, our budget estimated for much more damage than what we came across. We're very lucky. In fact, generally we come across pretty lucky out of these kind of things.
Very blessed.
Very blessed. Fingers crossed that it keeps going. But there was one large beam up just below the tower, 7.5 meters long, and in 3 parts. We replaced it with 3 pieces of wood, and the pieces of wood were lifted up by a digger through the window, which was pretty handy because we had the digger on site doing other works at the time. That's definitely the biggest structural piece we've had to replace.
Yeah.
And I think it will remain the biggest piece we have to replace.
Yes, and then I think our biggest expense was probably the fosse septique, or the septic tank that had to go in.
Well, not exactly. The problem is we have a combined invoice for the fosse, doing our driveway and doing some drainage as well, because there's a lot of clay in this area, and when it rains, the water just pools on the surface. So that was a combined invoice. That's definitely our biggest invoice.
Yeah.
That could have bought a small house.
Hopefully that's the only big one today.
But again, we prepared for that and budgeted. I'm not entirely sure it was on budget, but we did some more scope because just before they were here, it rained a lot, and we saw how wet the ground really got, and we did a bit more drainage. The quote recommended more drainage. We tried to rein it in, and then we were here. We realised that more drainage needed to get done, and we're happy with the result.
Yeah, very
We
happy.
have a nice turning circle, which needs a fountain design and all kinds of gardening, which still needs to get done. But generally, we no longer live in a quagmire.
Right, and I think we'll call that a day.
Yeah, our kids are finished and calling us. So we're lucky we got through 15 minutes though. Longest one to date.
Hope that wasn't too boring.
Yeah, as usual, let us know your comments. We'll upload it later this evening and keep the questions coming in, and I will still go through the questions on the first post as well.
Au revoir.
Au revoir.